Hello, welcome into the Rams Radar, the show on the internet where we talk about random things that are talking about the Rams and we react to them. And one of my personal favorite thing to react to is anything to do with Tom Grossi and Brandon Perna. Tom Grossi inspires me to be a better content creator, a better person. Brandon Perna inspires me to be something, maybe a worse person, not a worse person. He inspires me to keep my beard nice and long. Anyway, but these two gentlemen are hilarious. They're amazing. I love it when they talk football. They're great. In this week's episode of GPS on January 15th, 2025, they talked about, get this, the Los Angeles Rams, which, to be honest, they don't talk about the Rams that much. So I thought, hey, let's do a reaction video to them. I've listened to a little bit of what they were saying. I haven't listened to the whole thing. Some of it I totally am like, yeah, that's cool. And other things I'm like, come on, Tom and Perna, you gotta learn more about the most interesting team in the NFL, in my humble opinion, which is your Los Angeles Rams. So let's get into it right here, right now. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And let's listen in on Tom and Perna talking about Rams.
Sean McVay is just a hell of a coach.
Yep, facts.
Every time we kind of forget about Sean McVay, he's like, remember me, mother lickers? Like, I vanquish all of my foes, my former underlings. I will outcoach them. I will outcoach Kyle. I am the guy who is actually your fringe coach of the year candidate right now. And I should be getting more attention. Matthew Stafford, your trusty veteran quarterback, try and blitz him. He will just pick you apart. And the Rams have a really tough matchup against the Eagles because the Eagles do not blitz. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But like the story for the Rams in that game was their defense, right? It wasn't just the 9 sacks. So Sam negated 82 yards on those 9 sacks. And we're like, oh God, is the Rams defense a juggernaut now? Like, is this the defense we should be talking about? And I think the Rams defense is going to be that next season. I think they've developed, they've grown.
Yep.
But the slate of teams that they've shut down have not been super impressive in terms of who they are offensively over the last like 5 weeks. Outside of the Vikings, but we saw the Vikings offense struggle against the Lions defense.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to stop there briefly there. Perna makes a lot of really interesting points. Number one, Sean McVay is a great head coach. People don't talk about him enough. Number two, the Rams defense has been getting better and improving as the season has gone on. And we'll talk more about the Eagles matchup in a little bit. But I think one thing that he is spot on with is the Rams defense next year is going to be so good. It is going to be a juggernaut if they keep developing the way that they've been playing this year. I'm excited for it, and I think we're witnessing the birth of a truly elite defense that we're going to be talking about for the next couple of years here. And just Byron Young, Kobe Turner was, last year's draft to get it, to start it at that front four. Then this year, getting Brayton Fisk and Jared Verse. This is going to be one of those defenses that gives offensive coordinators nightmares to prepare for if they aren't already.
And now we're like, wait, was the Lions defense really back, or did they just play the Vikings? So what the Rams defense does against Philly, I think will be a much better metric for us to gauge.
And for the record, when they played the Jets were playing a little bit better. The Cardinals are not that bad of an offense. They held them under, 10 points. And the Niners were banged. Okay, the Niners are banged up and injured, but you think with Kyle Shanahan, they would have still been a bit more of a threat. But there were some weather, issues in there too that you have to account for. But I digress.
Where the Rams defense is.
Sure.
And the last time they played Philly, I think Philly kind of ran the ball right down their gullet.
Yeah.
Well, they're going up against a much better offensive line, right? Because if you look at the Rams are such an interesting team.
Okay,
And the way heading into Monday night I was feeling about them was, well, what Rams team are we going to get? Are we going to get the Rams team that went toe-to-toe with the Bills? Or are we going to go to the Rams team that couldn't score a touchdown on this 49ers team? Right? And again, it's a divisional matchup, all that great stuff. I don't think anybody and Jared Verse, we've been talking about him all year. Jared Verse is phenomenal and could be up there for defensive rookie of the year. He's had a fantastic year, but their whole pass rush is getting after the Vikings. But it's, again, about consistency, right? They're kind of middle of the road, or were middle of the road for the entire regular season. They're 17th in points allowed per game.
Okay, Tom, just saying, some say the Rams are inconsistent. Some say they're adaptable. I'm in the latter. I think that consistency has definitely developed as the season has gone on. So Tom's about to list off some stats here that I think those stats are tainted by a couple things. Number one, the Rams defense was super young at the beginning of the year. If you watched every Rams game, I'm pretty sure every Rams fan out there would tell you, yeah, the defense got better as the year went on. From young players just learning how to be a pro in the NFL, to scheme fit, development, to also making, decisions to do with injuries and just kind of some veteran things, right? They moved off of Tre'Davious White, Omar Spates coming in later on in the year and really just, taking hold of that linebacker position. Christian Roseboom has been playing out of his mind in the latter part of the season. So between player development, a little bit of roster tweaking here and there, and even I would say Chris Shula as a defensive coordinator really figuring it out. That is why the Rams defense has been playing so good the latter part of the year and why they dominated the Vikings.
Game, they were 22nd in rushing defense and 20th in passing defense.
Yeah, those are tated.
So it was okay, but their pass rush was good. So I think that they're going to have a tougher time with Philadelphia, but whole crap. You talk about McVay, the coaching staff, the D-line staff, they deserve a ton of credit for the way that they attacked that Vikings offensive line, because they were dominating. And it was super cool too. Obviously it was a really emotional moment for LA.
Yeah.
They're going through it too. So it was just that was a dope ass win for them. Yeah. And the Rams are always a fun team, but it legit is a box of chocolates and you don't know what you're getting.
They're not always a fun team.
Oh.
That's why I call them boring heading into the playoffs.
Right.
But they were fun against the Vikings.
Yeah.
They are fun.
Puka's fun.
When their offense works.
Cup has been a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But.
And so this is all right. They outscored the Bills. That's impressive. But it was okay, they hold the Niners to 6 points. They only scored 12. They hold the Jets to 9 points. They get 19. They hold the Cardinals to 9 points.
Yeah.
Their starters don't play, and then they hold the Vikings to 9 points. Had the Vikings, beat Detroit and their offense looked good in that final game, I would be super impressed with the Rams. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Rams. The reason I'm saying this is I was writing, working.
Just saying, sounds like he's trying to take someone away from the Rams. But anyway,
on power rankings, and yesterday I was thinking about it. I was I'm ready to go all in on the Ravens defense. That's going to be the angle. And then I'm wait, but this has been a narrative all season for I think every good team, because there's been this tier of football teams this season who are all just fucking bad. They suck. There was a lot of bad football teams.
Correct.
And then there was, your middle tier teams, they beat up on those bad teams, as did the good teams. And you can look at that, I think, for every single team in the playoffs this year, having a nice run against, whoever. In the AFC West, our nice run was against the NFC South. The Broncos swept the NFC South. So I'm not trying to take away from the Rams here. I think it's just made how good some of these teams are harder.
For the record, the Rams beat every team in the AFC East except for the Dolphins. And then they did very well against the NFC West division as well.
To gauge this season in retrospect.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? But if the Rams do this to the Eagles, then dear God, watch out. Like,
oh, well, then at that point, oh my God, let's get Lions Rams
Rams
NFC
Lions gonna
championship
be
game.
an insane championship game if the Lions, beat the Commanders.
But this is again, like, this is why I love this sport so much. Like, this is why I love the playoffs, because talking about the Rams going into this, I picked the Vikings to win. I thought they were a more balanced football team. And I was like, okay, I think they should be able to get this done unless Stafford is airing it out. And that first drive looked like the Broncos' first drive, which they were just moving down the field. They were looking good. They scored. And I was like, okay, let's see if they go back and forth. The Vikings just never went back and forth. And ultimately, like, the Rams, now we're talking about them of, okay, like, we saw one. Now, can they do it against the Eagles, who are going to be a step up? Like, they are going to be a step up within competition. But you talk about Nakobe Dean, which Packers got injured up the wazoo. But, dude, Nakobe Dean, he's out. He suffered that injury. He got carted off. That just sucks.
I'm really glad this viewer brought up Nakobe Dean, because that is a huge loss for the Eagles. Eagles are a deep roster, deep team. Going to be tough to beat for sure. But as I was saying before, this Rams team's identity, they are an adaptable team that will make you pay for their mistakes. Some people say, oh, like, it's a ground and pound, run first, play action team or something like that. And the Rams can do that, but the Rams have found a variety of ways to win games. And I think that this coaching staff, these players, the Rams' adaptability is what will lead them to the Super Bowl if they make it there. And I think if they were to beat Philadelphia next week, it'll be because they were able to adapt to a Philadelphia team that boat raced them earlier in the year, but they were able to come out on top because they found a way to adapt. They found a way to frustrate Jalen Hurts. And I'm not convinced that Nick Sirianni and the Eagles make some sort of mistake. And if the Rams make you pay for that mistake, watch out. My example is when the Rams played the Vikings, and the Vikings went for it early in the game on 4th and 2 at like half, and they got a sack out of it. That to me was one of the biggest turning points in that game.
So that's not going to make their defense any better. And I like Nakobe Dean. He's definitely improved. But what do they need to win it all? It's Saquon. If they're able to establish the run against any of the teams, they have a good chance of winning, right? The things where you're a little bit concerned is, like, they had 4 turnovers in that Packers game. And until the very end of the fourth quarter, that was a very close game.
Yeah.
So, but the Packers defense has been much improved this year. Saquon also slid too. Like, he could have ran it off for another touchdown, so they could have extended that lead a little bit more. But
of course, Tom brings it back to the Packers. I see what you're doing.
It's running through Saquon and having a great defense. So losing Dean is not going to help, but they still have a great defense, and they can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And if it winds up being what the anticipated championship game is with the Lions and the Eagles, like, that's going to be a real interesting game.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to hear Jared Verse's name much against Philly.
Ooh.
They have 2 of the best tackles in the league. In Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, right? Like, those guys are...
It's going to be tough.
They are... Put them on an island, whatever edge rusher, they're going to eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rams got pressure.
And I'll just say, I don't think Perna is wrong about that. I think that we might not hear Jared's Verse name a lot, but that potentially opens it up for someone else. And the Rams have been really good at dialing up the blitz, the past couple of weeks. Maybe we hear some names that you're not used to hearing, right? That's what happened against Minnesota, right? Almost like 8 players had half a sack or more.
A lot of their pressure came from, the interior in that game. And Kobe Turner. So we'll see. I just think the Eagles can take away the pass rush, and even if they don't, they can run the ball. Yeah. And if you're running effectively, it becomes harder to pass rush. If Philly gets a lead, it becomes harder to pass rush.
Sure.
Yeah, he's totally right here. If Philly gets a lead, especially in the third or fourth quarter, and they have the ball, they can suffocate a team out of the game. And that's something that the Rams will have to work hard to avoid. But yeah, that's that's a problem. I'm not here to say Saquon Barkley is not a problem for the Rams, but I'm not going to say there isn't a solution to that problem that's on the Rams roster.
So, and I think the Rams, I think Matthew Stafford kind of said that. He's like,
Team
our
game.
offense, we haven't played well, and we got an early lead. We allowed our defense to, just do what they do when you get a lead, and that's just attack.
Yep.
And so, that game's going to be really interesting. And we, outside the Commanders, were the only team who kind of were, in the 5, 6, 7 seed who won. So the rest of it's your top 4 seeds. So we get really good games, really good matchups.
I agree.
Saquon, I think, is just going to be the difference. I think Saquon Barkley is the most important player this week who's not a quarterback.
I agree.
And there's 3 insanely talented running backs this year, all in the playoffs right now. Barkley, Henry, Gibbs.
And I'll add a 4th, Kyron Williams. Just saying.
And the Lions are getting David Montgomery back. So, I love that. And the underrated guy in that mix, James Cook for the Bills, who's been
and no mention of Kyron Williams. Yep.
A staple of their success. So I love it. I love that the running backs are
just saying Kyron Williams was 3rd in rushing this year.
All impactful. They all had great seasons.
Yeah, man.
And we've been able to talk about them all year.
Like if we wind up seeing like Gibbs and Montgomery going up against Barkley, bro, that and again, like the AFC is setting up nicely too, because I think whatever that championship game is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Before we get into those remaining teams, so the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy, they are part.
Anyway, so that's kind of all they talk about with the Rams, mainly there. That was fun. That was cool. I'm not mad or anything like that. I always love hearing my favorite content creators talk about my favorite team and hear their perspective. I agree with them on some things, disagree with them on some other. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you had fun watching and reacting to this with me. I know it's like 17 minutes here. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end of the video, you guys are awesome. As always, go Rams, horns up, and peace out. Let's go Rams. I'll be doing a watch party for the Rams Eagles on Sunday. It's already scheduled. You can go turn on notifications now.
Thank you very much.